the ideas are great, but the intelligence engine is missing, and hence that idea sometimes vaporizes.
Or if you walk around and talk about digital twin, people like, hush, hush, you don't talk about digital twin because it's a terrible failure, right?
We have to share our data internally and externally. That's where the stumbling blocks are, because people do not know how to do that.
So if you're asking, all right, a bit early, then I look at you and say, perhaps you shouldn't be at the table.
Welcome to OpenGov Unplugged. We are in a part of two series where we are going to be talking about the intelligence engine for enterprise. I got Philip Chu, who's the managing director for Keppel over here. But before we set the tone on this, let's just talk about, we have moved from experimenting with AI to fundamentally rethinking how decisions are made inside operations. But you know what? This is not really about that. Today's all about the next shift, Philip. So let's bring you in, Start me off with this. What do you think are your first thoughts when it comes to mind? What's happened in the last 24 months?
I think for the last 24 months, what we have experienced is a clear understanding of what is foolish and what isn't. And unfortunately, still, I think the number of people who see things that are foolish, they may not be as many as we need it to be. But I think for us, as we have pushed forward the AI agenda at Keppel, the foolish side is a bit clearer to us. In terms of what is working, it is also quite clear what is working. It's the in-between that's going to take us a little bit more time to figure out.
Let's push that out a little bit more. Let's unpack that. Explain to me when you say, okay, how do you go across that hump then?
I think there is no other way of going across that hump than just to go across it. You literally have to take the first steps. And I think it's super clear now what the first steps look like. In an organization, the first steps has to be two-pronged. One is an understanding that data is key to you moving forward for intelligence. That is what you're trying to do. And depending on your data preparedness, you'll be ready to sprint and run, or you may have to go through renovations as you get there. But even as you do those renovations, you cannot make the organization wait months, years, and sometimes even multiple years before you get to what you believe is cleansed, sufficiently good information. Because actually, the state of the art on using AI in enterprises is such that the quality of the data may not need to be as high as you think it to be. That's one example of foolishness that's out there. One foolishness that we understand and know is you don't need to get your data 100%. You need to get your data in the form factor that is good enough, and you can start from there so you can show value immediately. So my advice to companies when they think about this is take advantage of some of the wisdoms that we have come across. If you haven't started your data journey, start your data journey, but the bar may be a lot lower than you think to make it usable for state-of-the-art AI.
What made you then suddenly think of this aha moment? What was the urgency? What was the trigger factor that made you deploy this?
I think the aha moment was pretty simple. I think it comes from particular personalities. Like, for instance, for us, it's our CEO, Chinua. He had that urge even from multiple years ago that he understands and knows that we have thousands of people in the organization. He also understands that there are tremendous wisdoms that's trapped across the org, and he has never felt that he's been able to bring all of them together, harnessed to solve important problems for us. We've always had to go through multiple steps to be able to get to that ideal, and he never feels that he got to the ideal. So that urge of wanting to collectivize wisdom is that urge. That aha moment actually doesn't come from me, the technologist, but it comes from business itself, that we are just not doing as good as we think we can.
That's brilliant, actually, because if you think about this, traditional business was all about the brain, the centralized system, right? And the brain gave all the commands and everybody followed suit. Now we're seeing a more distributed system, and that's what you're alluding to. Is that what really happened in Keppel, in the last 24 months or so?
I think in the last 24 months, we've created the conditions for us to get there. It is a journey. I won't tell you what my best guess is on when we'll get to that point, but we are going to accelerate into this, and we're going to gain very easily verifiable returns on investment soon. It's something that is a pet peeve of mine. wanting to ask about ROI when you're venturing into something, and I use the venture word very carefully, right? If you're a VC, do you sit down and if you're looking at an early seed investment for what could potentially end up to be Google, do you really think about ROI at that point? You don't. And if you are, you really shouldn't be doing VC. And so, in the same fashion, because AI is so rapidly morphing itself and changing and adding capability that you can look at AI projects across all enterprises as internal VCs. And so, if it's an internal VC, you really shouldn't be asking for ROI that early. If you're later stage, if you're looking at, say, growth capital, then of course you want to look at ROI at that point. So it's an earned right to be able to ask the question of ROI. So if you're asking ROI a bit early, then I look at you and say, perhaps you shouldn't be at the table.
Fair play, because everybody is talking about ROI.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the stumbling block is, right?
That's another foolishness that's out there.
That's the other one you want to uncover.
Yes.
So then instead of waiting for reports right now, I think what the organization are constantly seeing is they're trying to interpret and they're trying to respond to the actual problems taking place, right? Is that the correct pathway for them to go down, Philip? Or do you think they should have a little bit of more a flamboyant approach to this because it is moving that fast?
Well, I wish I could guide people towards flamboyance because we would have a much more interesting world to live in. I wouldn't necessarily put it that way. I think people's personal AI journey is very critically connected to the overall AI journey of the company. In any population, I'll look at average population. I was just having breakfast with someone.
Explain that. When you say people's journey and organization's journey is different or it's not connected as much, why are you saying that?
I think they are intimately connected because organizations are made out of people. And so that colors the way they respond to what their next step is for the organization. So which means that all of us need to take our own personal AI journeys. I'm going to say a term that everyone who is worth their salt looking at this is going to recognize: OpenClaw.
Right.
OpenClaw is a permission for everyone to be a geek.
Correct.
And it's also a permission for everyone to go on their own personal AI journeys.
True.
I wish OpenClaw had come into being a year ago. Because actually the reality is, if I think about the technology, it is nothing but a glorified cron with LLM on top of it.
Spot on.
And we could have had that a year ago. So, but the founder of OpenClaw wasn't out of a job a year ago. So he wasn't toying with this necessarily. Correct. So, but in any case, all of us have been given the permission to be hip and fashionable and talk about OpenClaw in parties. And when you do that, that means that you can literally take your own personal journey of really starting to figure out what it means when you have an almost sentient being sitting on your computer that you can chat to and has access to your personal files and your personal applications on your desktop. What would you have that intelligence do for you? And you can experiment. And if your OpenClaw is boring, then you are boring. True. If your OpenClaw is more interesting, does more things, then you are more interesting.
Okay, so let's go down this rabbit hole since you dug it up already, sure. Right? Okay. Now, the guardrails become a big factor over here because OpenClaw can do exactly what you want to do or not want to do. And guess what? It runs on its own. That's okay. Right. So, yes, you're right. You make it a very interesting clone of yours. It's going to go down that pathway and do things faster while you are sleeping, respond to things while you are not even aware, and the guardrails are not there at the moment. Yep. So then what's your quick advice on that particular line or lines?
My quick advice on that is take the line of thinking that worked for hobbyists in the 80s when they first touched computers.
Interesting.
What was that like? Well, things would crash all the time. Things are unreliable. You'll have to, even in some versions of these personal computers, you literally have to connect the switches with wires before it will work for you, right? True. How do you get forward in that? By forming communities that teach each other how to do this. And why do I think that's important? It's important because there's something about society that we are going through a transformation on right now. Ultimately, the AI journey I'm talking about is societal level. And at the individual level, the transformation is happening where a lot of us, whether we like it or not, are going to be more like the geek that is sitting in front of you. A lot more people are going to be accidental computer scientists.
Correct.
because they want to live in the new world.
Spot on.
And this is the right time, right place. OpenClaw gives you permission. You look hip. You're not like, I'm trying to be a geek, therefore I'm doing this. No, I'm just doing the hippest thing that's out there, right? So there is that cover. And how do you safeguard yourself? It is by advice through community.
Yeah.
Don't venture into this alone if you've never done it before, right? For myself, my OpenClaw experiments are pretty well controlled, very easy to understand and know.
Right.
So I have no danger on myself or my family when I do this in my personal computer at home.
Okay.
Right, but that's because I'm already a geek.
All right.
For others who are trying to go on that journey, find communities and they will
Very
keep you safe.
dangerous. You're absolutely right. The community. I'm going to touch on data democratization because you mentioned about data. Okay, and let's really talk about that because you know what? At OpenGov we call data blood. I think it's the most important system. You talk about nervous system, you talk about centralized systems. Yeah, you stop data, it comes to a standstill. You stop blood, it comes to a standstill. So the question is, it's not really happening, right? It's not being democratized the way we want it to be democratized. In your opinion, what does that really mean? Data democratization for the organization.
So I'm going to say something controversial.
Good.
I think it hasn't moved because the industry that is sitting on top of data management right now has run its course.
Interesting.
So I love what Snowflake and Databricks both do.
Right.
But I think there's a next generation that's just waiting around the corner. I think they are solving the wrong problem for us now.
So new kids on the block.
New kids on the block are going to appear. And I kind of know what the kids look like because I'm in the field.
Right.
And I'm just waiting for them to be there. And if they're not there, I'll just build the kids myself.
Okay.
So what am I talking about? Let's just walk away from the abstract. What I'm talking really about is the meta layer on top of data. Data itself is just bits and bytes.
Correct.
On and off switches. That's it. Does it really tell you anything if it's 1 or 0? Well, it tells you something if you understand the context of that 1 or 0 bit. So you're talking about context. What is context here? Context is really about knowledge.
Right.
So the new layer that hasn't been built yet is the knowledge layer. And there'll be a new generation of the equivalent of Databricks and Snowflake that dabbles and really solves the problem of knowledge management in the company, not data management. Data management is passé. It's a solved problem. Even when you put it all together, without the knowledge layer, you have nothing still. Right? Folks who are in the data layer at this point in time, if they don't have an ontology, you should say, please wake up, you're in 2026. If you don't have an ontology, you are absolutely doing no favors for the enterprise to move forward. Because without an ontology, what is AI going to do with your terabytes and petabytes of data? It will not understand what's there.
True. So then, if I was to go a little bit deeper with that, do you think people actually know how to use their data, or are they using that just as a stumbling block and not progressing?
I would say that at the origination point of the data, 100% people know.
Okay.
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 So, like for instance, if I take the example of an operations in Changi Airport, right? The people who are generating the data through return styles, people who are generating data as they check in your passport, they know what the context is.
Absolutely.
100%. They can talk about it for hours on end.
Correct.
Right? However, once it is put into data bits and data streams, then to the people who are now the intermediaries, and this is a common thread that I've lived in my career, intermediaries are always the one that you want to arbitrage out.
Right.
So as the intermediaries are handling things that they look at it at scale and the meaning has been lost, they then try to reassemble in the points of consumption, analytic systems or front-end systems, then they try to recreate what the context is again.
That's the problem.
So why are you destroying context?
Correct.
Putting it through a dumb pipe, and I apologize for my friends
That's okay.
in the data space. I'm sure they don't like that, but to me, as compared to a knowledge pipe, data pipes are dumb pipes.
Right.
You put it through a dumb pipe, and then on the other side, you struggle. You struggle to try to recreate these knowledge on the other side with context.
Correct.
So why do you do that? Why don't you just send the semantics directly from your system of record over to the system that is trying to consume this.
No, true that. So Chang is a very good example you gave because that is almost a sandbox environment, right? It's contained, it's self-contained over there. They know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
They know how to drive that forward. The moment that data goes to a third party, that's where the problems are coming in.
That's right.
Right? And now that we have to share our data internally and externally, that's where the stumbling blocks are because people do not know how to do that. Is that fair?
That's very fair.
Interesting.
That's very fair.
Let's
So that's another silliness that's out there.
Correct. That's another silliness, yes. So what you alluded to earlier on. Yes.
so I'm turning that into a theme, silliness.
You are. No, and that's fair because I think with the push in tech, the way we are pushing the envelope, I think there are people, and you use a couple of words over here. You're talking about geeks. Geeks are people who understand the technology very, very well. Like they're stupid. For them, it's nothing. It's the rest of the world who are trying to cope with that speed of tech being rolled out and trying to consume that is where the gap's getting bigger and bigger.
That's right.
Right? So you got the rich gap getting bigger, you got the tech gap getting bigger. And we are at that inflection point again, where when technology started off, yes, there was a gap. There were the techies and the non-techies.
Yep.
Now, the whole world thought they became techies since November 2022 rolled out, and a year later, 23 rolled out. So what was the inflection point in Keppel? Take me back 2 or 3 years. Okay, how did this whole paradigm start? Because 23 became the consumption for AI.
I think compared to what it was like in 23, right now it's night and day. I think in 23 it was looked upon as something important for us.
Correct.
It's very strategic, but being a super engineering focused in our history and being cautious, actually, if you didn't try something, you know where you were going to go, which was you're going to just go nowhere. And so it was that refusal to realize that if we just let the inertia move on, that nothing was going to come out of it, that we took some very measured risks. And those measured risks are, if you look at the many things that we do in our company in Keppel, the most valuable value chain that we have is the value chain where we acquire ideas to invest in, validate those ideas, and put it through our own investment committee, decide to go in, and then figure out how to run the business efficiently and well to create value out of it and then sell it at some point.
Wow.
Right? That is the most important value chain we have. If you accelerate that value chain by 100%, you can easily see that you can generate a lot more revenues for the company through fees,
correct,
but also through assets that we manage. So very, very clear sensitivity to returns if you make that faster. And so because we had the privilege of having a value chain like that, so like for instance, if you were running a F&B operation,
right,
you may not have a value chain that looks that good. Right? If you make your food more delicious, you're going to get more business, but you cannot easily say that if you make it 2 times more delicious, it's going to double your business.
Correct.
You don't know. Right? For us, if we double the speed with which we prosecute our ideas, we can clearly see where the returns are. And so based on that, we gambled on creating, and when I say gamble, I mean we take very measured risk to create 2 AI pilots to accelerate that value chain.
Interesting.
And that's how it started.
Right.
Right. Getting the confidence to gamble for 2 pilots and to see the results. And then from the results, we built the case to ourselves that we love this thing. It costs us X dollars to do each one of them. But if we wanted to do 100 of these, you know what? We are not as rich as other huge institutions in Singapore. Maybe it starts with a D.
Right.
But like for us, we just had to be very prudent.
Yeah.
And so our next step was also something really simple, which was if we could create 2 at high cost, how about if we create a factory that could create many, many more at 10 times less cost or even much less than that. And so that was the motivation for us in the second year in 24 into 25, where we conceived of and we started the construction in early Q1 in 25 to create this factory.
So from concept to reality, that's what you're talking about.
From pilot to a factory to manufacture a lot more.
Wow. So full scale production.
Yeah. So
That's the
so
genius in this.
well, so it's look, when I lay it out to you, it's super obvious, right? So
Yeah,
obviously every company should do this.
obviously.
And
Not
it's
happening.
and it is correct, right?
Yeah.
There are I would say I have filtered out 50 other decisions that the company had to make inside to get to this point. But it is in the maneuvering internally to be able to get the 50 approvals to get through this.
Mm.
So that's where most of the time what I described to you obviously should happen, but it's extremely difficult to make happen in any realistic
Yeah.
enterprise.
I'm going to pick on two words you use, the intelligence engine. Let's talk about that. What does that really mean in an organization? Because I think that is the missing link that most people have. They got ideas, and the ideas are great, but the intelligence engine is missing, and hence that idea sometimes vaporizes, doesn't become into mainstream.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say that I didn't have the wisdom 2.5 years ago to say that the factory or the intelligence engine, as you call it, is really what we needed.
Mm.
I'm not that smart. I couldn't have figured it out. I think intelligence engine or the factory or Kai as we call it is an outcome of a struggle,
Okay.
right? It's
Hence
an outcome
innovation.
of a struggle.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
therefore it's in many ways, in retrospect, if you look at it, it's a case study that you can teach in Harvard Business School.
Yep.
How do you create the conditions for such innovations to be put together?
Correct.
So that one I think is an earned right. So I think that the constant truth of all of us as humans as we are trying to progress, we can never get away from struggle.
Mm.
Struggle is important. Scarcity is important. I would also say that if I was tremendously funded 2.5 years ago, there is almost no chance I could have been as creative as I've been for the company.
Fair play.
To get to where
Yes.
it got to.
Mhm.
So when folks said to me, be careful what you say because we may still continue to starve your resources, I'm like, bring it on. It's okay. Because I have my intelligence engine already. Because my marginal cost of creating use cases is as much as me spending half an hour in front of my AI friends,
Mhm.
and I can create what you would have taken you a team of 5 people in a month to do.
Right.
So to me, it's a much lower cost than what you are facing. So what this intelligence engine, this Kai, is all about is, in a lot of ways, to me, my first view, instantiation of an AI operating system.
Right. For Keppel to begin with, and then for the rest of the world, hopefully at some stage.
We will see.
Okay.
There's tremendous optimism that we could do that.
Right. So, Philip, walk me through this. We have what's called a top layer, okay, and then you have the decision layer, and most organizations struggle with that, right? How do the top layer and the decision layer sync? Because if they sync, you get the sweet spot, and then hence the intelligence engine rolls out, people roll out, and then you roll out product. Okay, walk me through that. How does that really work internally?
So internally, what we have done is the top layer, as you described it, we are empowering them with the intelligence layer.
Right.
We are not presupposing to the leadership that we know where they're going to head with this.
Okay.
Right. The leadership now have a lot of access and people who understand, know how to do this, who are able to bring the intelligence layer along. And it's up to them to set the goals.
Yeah.
It's up to them to define which hill to take. And it's up to them to suffer the losses or gain from the gains that they
Reap
get
the
on the other
benefits.
side.
Correct.
It's up to them.
Correct.
Right. And I think that this is a politically charged question in any organization.
Yeah.
Who gets the credit when the glory is there?
Yeah.
I think at this point, for me, when I look at the technology area and I look at the rest who are part of the builders who have put this intelligence engine together, we are not the heroes in this point. At this point, we have given all the conditions, and the heroes will be the businesses that pick them up. Now, the question is, if business doesn't pick it up, then very clearly there is something that the organization overall needs to figure out. But that's not my game to play. My game to play right now is I've created the intelligence engine.
Right.
We will continue improving it. And don't wait for me to make it better for you, for your business. You have to make it better for yourself.
Yeah. Before I hit you with my last question, I got one prequel to that. A lot of businesses struggle to try to get top management in sync with what they want to do, right? You got a complete, I want to say, misalignment almost, because how top leaders understand sometimes technology. They're not all technologists. Now, in your case, it's slightly different, but most businesses, you could have leadership who do not really understand and grapple with tech. Hence, you got this big thing about ROI, ROI, ROI. But hang on, what about ROV, return on value? What would be your one or two sentences advice on how do these businesses navigate that storm that they're in?
Two things.
Okay.
Firstly, there is nothing better than showing than talking about it. I think for the folks in these organizations that are trying to convince people, don't convince them with words only. Words are important, right? But only words makes you more vacuous.
Right.
They will discount you even more the next time you come.
So
and
you're
talk
saying
to
just
them.
do it.
You have to do it.
You got to do it.
And when you do it, if you are not able to create a sandbox in your company,
Right.
you create synthetic data outside, and you create it outside,
Right.
and pretend like you have a sandbox. But because it's super secure, because there's nothing proprietary about it, you can do it outside. And if you are truly an AI native, you can do this.
Champion.
All of us understand and know this.
Correct.
Right? So show rather than tell. That's how I have seen even people who are not technologists will be super impressed, and they will then start to question themselves.
Yeah.
Is my pessimism really warranted? So that's one, right? There's nothing stopping true AI evangelists to jump forward for the company and illustrate to the company. Please don't take confidential data from the company and take it outside to do it. You can generate synthetic data up the wazoo so easily nowadays. Correct. Why aren't you doing this?
Yeah.
So second part to this is for the executives who are less exposed to this. Unless they're living under a rock, they're also encountering AI in their private lives. Right?
True.
And I think this is about standard setting. The chief executive has to set the standard that ignorance is no longer an excuse. I'm too old to learn this. No. You finally had the most powerful technologies in the world accessible by voice and by speaking to them.
Correct.
You do not need to speak code.
Yeah.
Do not ignore them. If you ignore it, then you are derelict in your duty, no matter if you are far away from technology or not. Whether in HR, whether in finance, whether in operations, you cannot hide under the guise that is not my playbook anymore. No, it is everyone's playbook now.
I agree. I agree. And you have so many people, can't use the word dinosaur anymore, that's become too old, but people who are unwilling to change, and they will get changed because they will get replaced. Those are the ones who should be worried in this day and age. The ones who are using tech will be fine. Okay, last one. Let's look into the future.
Okay.
Come on, talk to me. What do you see the next 18 to 24 months, Philip? We can't even go beyond that. That's just, even 18 months for me is so far out right about now.
Yeah.
What's your view?
So this might sound a bit odd, but the way I would give you a prediction for 18 to 24 months is actually looking at what we are working on right now.
Okay.
And the reason is because as we have been on this journey for almost 2.5 years now, we, whether we wanted to or not, are developing a laboratory internally. And so if I look into my laboratory, it's a pretty fair predictor for what is 18, 24 months ahead from now. I think 18 to 24 months from now, what you will have is the closest instantiation of the digital twin that everyone has been pining for. Just like AI, if you talk about AI 5-6 years ago, it's a dirty word. It's like, it's a field that had so much promise and it died a few lifetimes already. It doesn't really quite work. Digital twin also, like in Singapore, if you walk around and talk about digital twin, people like, hush, hush, you don't talk about digital twin because it's a terrible failure, right? I think in 18 to 24 months, we'll have digital twins of companies.
I agree.
100%.
I agree with you.
And this digital twin will be a digital twin that you can speak to.
Correct.
Rather than just a bunch of simulations up there on the board.
Yes.
So in some ways, this will be our first instantiations of being able to talk and to have relationships with the company. So the board can literally talk to the company, regardless of the executives.
Interesting.
And it becomes another data point that is
Correct.
important for the board to understand.
Yeah.
What the C-suite does with this digital twin is up to them. They can use it for terrible goodness and terrible badness. And so in this particular case, right, it is to me similar, perhaps not in magnitude for this digital twin, but similar in spirit to the creation of the atomic bomb.
Wow.
Just because you can create a digital twin of a company doesn't mean necessarily on an ethical basis that you should do it. I think it should be done because it brings forward an evolution in how people work together.
Correct.
Companies that can be true digital twins on their own, and if there's sufficient trust from the board, these digital companies can talk to other digital companies in the same way that we are now fascinated by the simple version of open clause talking to each other. Just imagine company A talking to company B, talking to company C,
Correct.
and creating deal opportunities that even our own executives didn't think of.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we'll be in 18 to 24
That's very
months.
interesting because you've used two very big words. You use the word lab, laboratory, and the word factory, which means what you actually think and what you have visualized in your mind is you have a machine internally with people and tech that coexist in a very harmonious environment, which you can see an exponential shift.
I look at a lot of what I do now as creating communities of AI and people together. I think I want to earn the right to be called a thinking machine company rather than one where I label myself as a thinking machine company.
Got it.
I think people will start to see that.
That's brilliant. And I think that's where the fundamental shift is going to take place, Philip. I thank you for being on the show. I thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. It's wonderful being with you, Mohit.
Pleasure. Thank you.